Look, I don't expect this team to ever get a video from me ever again, so you better be happy that I'm even talking about them now. What to talk about the 2021 Hawks, because the Hawks have made a lot of like moves and stuff this season, and they also have a pretty good amount of talent from the wing department. They probably have something. This is probably the best team that they've had talent wise. We're wondering if they can make it as far as they did in the 2021 season. And not only am I just off rip, no, just no. Like, even if everything went right for the Hawks, do I see them beating what is likely going to either be the Cavaliers, the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons, a Bucks team in round two next season? No, I don't. So they're not going to come close to what they did in 2021. And I wanted to add some context around this because everyone who's been talking about this have been forgetting about what this like run actually meant and why like it's weird to talk about this run. I just want to point that out. And also another thing, people were talking about this run as if it was crazy good, which I don't. They also used to use this to shade it and delude themselves into thinking that the Luka trade wasn't that bad, even though he gave you niggas 70 plus points. Yeah, I don't. I don't know how you wind up with Trae Young and think you won that trade. It didn't. You got Cam Reddish on out of that trade too, by the way. Like it wasn't straight up just Luka for Trae, but like even if I add Cam Reddish, like is that enough for you people? Like seriously? I just so two people, like five people, were just blatantly lying to themselves and trying to lie to me. So I'm just going to tell you really quickly what the lies were and why every single one of them is just insane to me, and I have no idea how we came to this conclusion. Okay, so for context, I was watching a synthetic sports video. Really great channel, love those guys. Two Portland fans. Just wanted to give that context. They're talking about the Atlanta Hawks, and basically all of the what they've done in the Trae Young era and how there's like very little success to talk about there. So they obviously go into the talking about their run in 2021 eventually, and then they talk about the mediocrity that follows, blah 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 blah, right? But the thing that I'm incensed about is people lying to me, right? These people have told no lies. They cover it very objectively, and they talk about the failures of this team after this, but they did, I want to say, leave it too ambiguous as to the amount of success that this really was versus what happened. It's weird. So let's see. I say to discredit them because, to be honest, crediting them and being like, this was a very interesting Eastern Conference Finals run, and that they did pretty well. No, just no, they didn't. They played against the Randall Knicks, and the imploding Sixers. Now, I have the ability to know exactly what I meant in every single one of my comments, and sometimes it can be misconstrued. But I do try to read my comments before I say things out in the internet. So, best offense, they said, this Hawks guy says, is a Hawks fan. So, immediately, you know they're biased. I am not biased against the Hawks, but I am objective with the Hawks. I am not going to lie to you. The best defense in the league, the first seeded Sixers with Ben Simmons, who was apparently better than Trae Young that season in the eyes of the media. Now, he's using the media as a blanket term to just because he's not listing who he think is saying. He's not even listing the places that he heard this from. No, I'm not expecting that level of articulacy from a YouTube comment, but I just want you to point that out because this is why the argument is very flawed. For starters, Ben Simmons, in fact, was better than Trae Young at that point in time. So let's not get it twisted. We already had acknowledged that Trae Young's was a defensive liability, and at this point in time, the offensive liabilities that we saw from Ben Simmons had not fully reared their ugly head. His passivity was not a problem yet because we had seen him be aggressive enough in the regular season. And him as a facilitator and Trae Young at the time seemed to be comparable. Now, obviously, Trae Young just became a better facilitator after this, but at the time, yes, Ben Simmons was considered widely better than Trae Young for a reason. It wasn't like as in some. It wasn't as if the media was completely fucking wrong and they didn't know what they were talking about. No, niggas at ESPN were pretty right in thinking at that time, based on what the sample size that we saw, that Trae Young wasn't better than Ben Simmons. And Simmons seems like he was going to be a perennial All-Star at that point in time, and Trae Young was in his third season. So yeah, no. And they try to use this to hype up the Hawks, and I just had to remind him because he's acknowledging that these are the Ben Simmons Sixers, which I don't know if you know this, but it's been like 4+ years since that team that team last had Ben Simmons on it playing games. So just saying. The Knicks were in fact the third best defense because he just blatantly lied about them being the best defense, which, I mean, top 3 is cool, but here's a fact that he doesn't list. The Knicks that season were the 23rd best offense. We're talking top 25. And I'm saying top 25 because I know saying top 23 is true, but when you're saying stuff like that, no one fucking cares about the nuances in that. It's not really that serious. I'm saying they're a top 25 offense because objectively that's true. And this also gets you a obvious idea of where they are. There were only 7 worse offenses than them that year, by the way. So this point about them being a really good defense and them was kind of mute because the reason they lost this series is because their offense was bad. Shocker. I did not bother going into detail on what the Hawks were rated in the regular season because, again, that did not fully represent how good they were, and B, the Knicks one is atrocious. But congrats on beating the top 23rd offense and top 3rd defense. That was really good. It's not like we acknowledge the flaws of Tom Thibodeau and the fact that Julius Randle's offensive production was so bad in the playoffs. Mind you, that was with Julius Randle playing at an all-star level that season. So that offense that was top 23 then had their best player play awful. Yes, that's gonna happen. Then this team goes up against 2 regular season players, and when I say regular season players, I mean it. At this point in time, we had just started to acknowledge that Embiid was a terrible playoff performer and continued to be one until 2024. And if you want to say, well, he was injured, and the only series that we saw where he wasn't injured, he was great, you need to acknowledge that if a player is constantly injured and also just obviously injury prone and has played less games than Carmelo Anthony has since 2014, the year that he was drafted, there's a problem. 2023 was the last year we saw that nigga, by the way, and Anthony also spent time out of the league. He's played less games than that nigga, so we need to stop acting and being deluded about, that's a common thing with Joel Embiid. You're something that you're used to seeing. Also, Ben Simmons was historically bad in this playoff. So again, you beating this team is cool, but is it impressive? No, it's not impressive that you beat the Ben Simmons Sixers, where Ben Simmons decided to score an average of less than 1 point in the fourth quarter on those series. That's not impressive. You played against a fucking choker. And mind you, who was coaching this team? Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, an historically great coach who definitely hasn't ridden the coattails of one championship where he wasn't even the fucking best coach on the team, mind you. Tom Thibodeau was, just saying. And you've been riding his coattail the entire way through the league. He is the exact opposite of black excellency, and I'm tired of this nigga. I'm tired of him having a job. Anyway, but ignore that. The context of that doesn't matter in the eyes of these people. So let me just extreme and exaggerate this really quickly. Once they played against a real team, as in one that actually knew what the fuck they were doing, they were so outclassed it was embarrassing. Like, I just don't want to lie to myself. They were outclassed. Immediately they go, another person, mind you, their name is Pluto Dreams, an allusion to an Atlanta rapper. So again, another nigga from ATL trying on that bullshit. How is it a knock on us that they shit themselves? Nobody had us beating those teams at the time, so why are we acting like they were the favorites? Has anything I've said so far proven that they thought that they were the favorites? No. I said that the underdog played against a team that shit themselves. The underdog beat the person that was in front of them. I'm not saying that they didn't do that. I'm saying that the reason they won is because the niggas on their team that was supposed to be the guys shit themselves. Yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to lose those games and those series, especially considering I'm not saying they played bad for one game. I'm saying niggas in Ben Simmons' case played historically bad. And Embiid also played bad, but he doesn't get the rap and the shit that he deserves because of how bad Ben Simmons played. And Julius Randle was found out in this series, this is the first one, to be a bad playoff performer. And we knew he was a bad playoff performer. And this is the first year where his playoff performance, which was in fact mid if you look at it, especially considering once you went against a top tier defense in the OKC, they played kind of bad. Now I'm gonna be giving him some grace. It was the fucking Thunder. They were terribly offensively, defensively stifling. I'm gonna give Julius Randle some credit there, and he played a lot better this season. But this is not who he was in 2021. He was bad. He was bad, bro. He was not that good in the playoffs. He was not good at all in the playoffs, to be quite honest. Next guy says, every ESPN analyst, this guy actually labels the media that he's consuming and blaming this on, had the Hawks losing in 4 to 6 games. In the series, let's stop acting like anyone thought they would win. So, I never said that the Hawks were not underdogs. I said that they played against teams that were historically bad chokers. My next point is, isn't it obvious that one of those players having these types of meltdowns, that's the reason why the team that no one predicted to win won? That's not impressive. And by the way, the Hawks defense wasn't giving these players fits. So I just wanted to bring that up because I didn't have to bring it up during this because it was not necessary. The Hawks did not cause these players to have bad series. These players just shot themselves out of games, or in Ben Simmons' case, refused to shoot himself into these games. I'd never acted if they were the favorites. My next point says that, in fact. I'm not acting as if they were the favorites. I am being objective and telling you they won against chokers. And it wasn't like bad. It wasn't just like, oh, alright, they're not that terrible. No, these were some dog shit performances. And I think niggas really don't know how bad they were. Person after this draws very, very big issue with me saying the word outclassed. Outclassed, question mark. They lost in 6 games, beat Giannis in game 1 fully healthy, and then Trey went down, and the Bucks still had 2 other All-Stars that finished the job. Just like no one predicted us. No one predicted those meltdowns. No one predicted us winning. Again, no one predicted you winning because in an ideal world where players play to their regular season averages and they translate perfectly well from the fucking regular season, no one would have you winning those series because it didn't make any fucking sense for that to happen. Obviously. No one can predict Ben Simmons scoring 2 points in the course of 4 quarters over the course of 5 to 6 games. That's embarrassingly bad. So I'm at this point I'm done entertaining this shit. Yes, those niggas were outclassified. The margin of victory was on average 8 points. And there's a game y'all won by 22 points. If you take that one out, that adjusting for the average, that's 12 points per game on victory. Many of us believe that 10 points at this era was a blowout. And to be completely fair to those people who believe that, you are 100% correct. 10 plus point margin wins in the playoffs is a blowout. Because it doesn't just mean that the team pulled away. It means the team probably pulled away, and knowing the Milwaukee Bucks at this time, with another coach who didn't make adjustments, they pulled away in convincing fashion and did not have to look back. And yes, there's probably a little bit of garbage time buckets that accounted for this game being a little bit closer than it was. In fact, that's very common in playoff series. Because you can't just wave the white flag, even though you probably should be able to, because fans know you're defeated, and you know you're defeated, and you know you can't make it back into the game. So 12 points is a big margin of victory. And by the way, this guy was just straight up not telling the truth about a lot of things in the series. One of the games that they won, well, mind you, there's only 2 of them, that featured the team playing against a non-Trae Young team. And again, the reason you guys lost eventually to the Bucks is because you're a very heliocentric offense that relied on Trae Young to do absolutely everything in this run. So when Trae Young didn't play, they didn't know how to defend this team because it was a lot easier to guard just Trae Young and the others. By the way, the others in this case were what? Actually, just also had like a mid performance from Giannis. Giannis had 24 points in that game, which against that Hawks defense, he was averaging like. Actually, we could just pull it up. I don't have to fucking lie to you. Let me pull it up. Let's see. What was Giannis averaging? Yeah, if we can just talk about his averages really quickly. 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. That is including... By the way, he only played 4 games in this series. So, you saying that they beat them in 6 is not impressive in the slightest. Just, When Trae Young went down, the series had already been widely considered to be over by most people. And then you guys won a game by 22 points. Oh, fair, whatever. All right, cool. Mind you, after Trae Young went down. Giannis suffers a really bad injury in the 4th game that causes him to miss the 4th. So let's just look at what the averages were. Just, let's look at that really quickly. What was his points before that injury? We can look at the minutes per game as well. That game, all the other previous game, he plays around 30 plus minutes, and Giannis played 41 minutes in the first game, which was far too much. Let's see, yeah, the numbers, by the way, that are being dragged down by this performance. So you have 34 points, 25 points, 33 points, and then 14. That's the game where he had an injury. You're telling me you weren't outclassed? Sure. All right, sure. I believe you. Sure. Sick, dude. Very true. Yeah. By the way, he lies after this and says that the 2 All-Stars were the reason why the series was closed out, and there were no 2 All-Stars. There were only 2 All-Stars in the entire series, and to lie and say that the Bucks had another 2 just waiting in the wings, and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, was a lie. In fact, the only All-Star teams that Drew Holiday had been on at that point in time was his 2014 Philadelphia 76ers All-Star appearance, when guards in the East were probably at like their weakest, to be quite honest, because this is before Kyrie Irving takes off. This is okay-ish John Wall, who was probably an all-star around that time, but the Wizards kind of sucked. And no Kemba, no Isaiah Thomas, none of that. That's when he was an all-star. That might be an injury replacement all-star. I don't even know. Like, this is we doing? By the way, that's post ACLs and shit. Not ACLs. Post like injuries. Derrick Rose too. Like, guard playing the East was not good. Like, I don't. Long story less long, and conclusion that you probably should have come to at the very beginning of this video and somewhere in the middle of this video if you have a brain. Hawks fans are miserable and delusional, and you should not engage with them ever. Atlanta can't have nice things for a reason, and maybe they don't deserve nice things if their fans are like this. If you like this video or the style of this video and just me wilding out in the comments because niggas are lying to me for no reason, like, comment, subscribe, all that nice things. And if not, I don't know what to tell you.